morning, Mr. Bluestein.
Hey, how are you? That's too formal.
Too formal, yeah. Like when people call me Mr. Fishman, I'm like, that's my late dad. It's not that formal.
Yeah.
Mike, you're not a unique guest on the podcast in the respect that you are, like me, someone who picked up your family, transplanted from Canada, essentially restarted everything. It's a journey that I think a lot of people are thinking of making.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people in the queue. I know I get a lot of calls about it, you know, the process and the path, which is what the podcast was supposed to be.
Yep.
It's morphed, but it's certainly a resource for people to come down. Are you getting calls from people about what's it like to come down here?
Yeah, I am. And it's not even direct. I get like colleagues or friends saying, oh, can this person call you? They're thinking of doing it. Can they ask you? I'm in a little bit of a different situation because I'm a lawyer. So it's a little harder to transplant that set. So I think a lot of people want to know how to do that and how we did it and the steps we took to get here. So yeah, I am hearing that. And then every day you talk to other people, oh, so-and-so's moving down or so-and-so wants to move down and they're coming down soon. I think it's fantastic.
What kind of law do you practice?
So I do corporate and securities. So anything from incorporating a company, buying and selling a business. We do a lot of IPOs and we do a lot of cross-border.
When you say buying and selling a business, now I'm talking selfishly, I'm going to try to pull some free legal advice off of you. And if I would have known a bit earlier, I just incorporated my my real estate company here.
Yeah, we do that.
Do you create kind of like a broker feel as well, where you have potential buyers and you merge them with sellers? Like, are you involved in the M&A, or are you just doing the legal work on it?
We do the legal work. We ensure it's done right. We ensure that you're getting what you think you're getting. Right. Due diligence, making sure that it's clean, whatever you're buying, drilling down to seeing if there's crap all over the asset, that type of thing. We want to make sure you're getting exactly what you think you are. As opposed to what someone may be telling you you're getting. So that's really what the lawyer's job is, to sort of find the dirt and find the risk, and you make the decision as to if you move forward with it.
Right. Okay. So it's the legal logistics. Do you handle real estate transactions as well?
No, we only do like corporate and security stuff. So at present, we do not do like closings or title transfers or anything like that.
It's totally different here than it is in Toronto.
It is totally different here. I never did in Toronto. It's more interesting here. I think their system is better here than it ever was in Toronto. Yeah, because
as a realtor in Toronto, I found from my perspective way easier. Once I handed it off to the lawyer, it was done.
Really, and here you can get a title agent to do. They match it up. They do that HUD, and it's sort of a done deal. Whereas lawyers, you had to do stuff online and this one transfer. Like, I think you didn't see the back end, but it was a huge relic, an old pain in the ass.
Right.
In Canada, I never did it, but from the ones that I saw, I was like, oh, that's too much headache.
Right. What type of visa are you here on?
I'm on an E2.
Yeah, me too.
We established an office here a couple years ago, and we started off with an L1. We saw, professionally, I saw that a lot of our transactions were coming out of the U.S., and a lot of our companies that we work with, every deal they were doing had a U.S. component, and then we would have to go and find U.S. attorneys to represent that side of the deal. So we said, it made a lot of sense to start looking into an office here to service both sides of the border. And we have U.S. attorneys and we have Canadian attorneys. So
you're now in two different locations, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What brought you down here?
All sorts of stuff, but definitely COVID was one of the vast eye openers. Obviously everyone knows you're locked down in Canada pretty tight.
I don't think as many people realize that. And I realize that when I'm having talks with especially people who were in Florida. Well, we were locked down too. I'm like, no.
It was like 2 to 3 years of like on and off craziness by us. And it was to the point where it was like only essential people can go to work. I was a lawyer, so we were allowed to go into the office, but otherwise you couldn't.
Sure.
It was a bit crazy. I just opened this huge office in Toronto. And
where's your office in Toronto?
It's in Vaughan. So 407 Keel area.
Oh, okay. That's exactly where my office was.
Yeah. So we were just bought an office there. It was an office condo. We just finished doing it.
So did I.
And then what number?
So if you remember the old National Sports Plaza?
Okay, yeah, I was further south of that. Yeah.
Okay, so we were just, and if you remember the Rosarium, like we were a couple of doors down. We bought a condo retail space and we sold it.
Yeah, so they did this new office condo at 20 Great Golf, and it was a great location.
Oh, yeah,
beautiful office.
I almost opened up my gym there, right off of the 407 entrance.
Right off of the 407.
Yeah,
beautiful
places.
We worked on it, bought it. It was years in the making. And then as soon as we opened it up, COVID, and they're like, no one can go to the office. And it was crazy. So I had this huge office that could accommodate like 20 people. And it was just me. There. It was just me coming in pretty much. So that was the start of things. There were some other things. There were some, family health issues that the Canadian health system wasn't taking care of. And
can you get into specifics?
My son has diabetes, and
so I'm assuming it's type 1?
Yeah, it's type 1, and then the care wasn't as good, and the equipment you couldn't get there, and stuff like pods they wouldn't give you right away.
Really?
So we had an endocrinologist here because we've had a place here for many years, and they were shocked that like you couldn't get stuff there. And that was a big one. It was the standard of healthcare is significantly different, despite what people think. Yes, it's free, but a lot of the time you get what you pay for with free.
Don't say free.
Yeah. Well,
don't say free. What was your tax bill like the other year?
Yeah, exactly. So people say free, but it's not free, and you don't actually get anything for the tax dollars you're putting in, especially if you need something in an emergency, or if you need to go to a walk-in clinic, you can't even go or find it. So
it is fascinating how the natural course of the conversation that I have with people moving down here, whether they're pro or against or just purely curious, and healthcare is like the first thing that comes up. And I tell people about the Canadian healthcare system. It is amazing until you need to use it.
Yeah.
Right. And
it's good in theory.
Yeah. There's pros and cons to the system here. And I can already, through my own experiences here, thank God nothing major. But I could tell you that the monetization aspect of healthcare here is front and center, like nothing you've ever seen before.
Yeah. It's a pay system, and that's fine.
So yes, it is fine until you start getting upsold for services you don't need under the guise of healthcare.
Yeah.
Where like I just got a $1,250 bill, which I thought was going to be for a sinus infection that I thought was going to be covered by my insurer, and I was upsold on the spot, not even knowing, because when you talked about healthcare, you'll basically say yes to anything that's available to help you feel better. And it wasn't the case. So, that was something I learned. The other thing that was told to me is watch out for shadow bills. Like you can pay for something and then get an invoice for the same thing, which is exactly what happened to me twice. Called the offices, said, hey, what is this? Just say, oh, no, sir. Just throw it in the garbage. Disregard it.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Right? So like there is, this isn't Shangri-La.
Yeah.
Right. So,
but you get the service here, and you can go 24/7 anywhere.
Yes.
And be taken care of in top-notch quality.
It's a phone call away, and there's so much competition for your business.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to say for a Canadian, they don't realize that it's business, but I go to Canada back and forth quite often, and I've had this exact scenario play out more than once where I needed to see a family doctor.
Yeah.
The best I can get was to my family doctor was a Zoom meeting, which would happen 3 or 4 days after I actually needed them. That Zoom meeting will then translate to an in-house visit, to then translate to a 3 to 4 month visit to a specialist,
which you'll never see or take forever. Yeah.
By that time, nature's done what to do, and your body's pharmacy has taken care of it. But I don't want to digress. Now that you're down here, what's it been like?
It's been amazing. I think this was the best decision we ever made.
I feel the same way. I'd love to hear where you see the biggest shift. And again, I also want to highlight some of the challenges.
Yeah.
But what's been, what would you say the best?
I would say your standard of living is completely different.
What does that mean?
You are able to go for walks all year round. You can go out and the kids can play outside. You're not stuck in a basement. You're not stuck on a device. They can go swimming 24/7. Every person.
Are you in a condo on the beach?
I'm not. We're in a house.
Okay.
But we're close to the beach, and you can go to the beach
whenever you want,
right? Like they're public beaches. You just go.
Where in Canada we worked our asses off to take that 2-week vacation
somewhere
to defrost.
Yeah, right. Basically, and all year round here, you can go and do stuff, and it's amazing. So I think that's a huge change because we weren't as active outside before in Canada, especially in the winter. I don't like cold. And, you know, I didn't want to go out in the cold, but here I can go out all the time.
Right.
And it's great.
How old are your kids?
My kids are 10 and 13.
How did they acclimatize?
I think they did it very well and quickly. You know, I think the friends were a big shift, but they have some incredible new friends here, and they still have their old ones. And I think the school has been fantastic with it.
Yeah.
The school is amazing.
Is it a private school?
It is a private school.
Right.
They were at Bialik in Toronto. And,
So are my kids.
Yeah, and the difference in education level is tremendous. Like, I was shocked. I was shocked that we were going to a quote-unquote private school, and yet they were 3 grades behind when we transitioned over here.
We have noticed our kids were small enough that it did not impact them.
Yeah.
But I've heard the same conversation for kids that were already in, you know, in the upper grades,
Yep.
where the education has now become real education. It's not just playtime.
Yeah.
And have all said the same thing.
Yeah.
We were very concerned about that, so we had them in additional programs. But when you say things like this to a Canadian, and perhaps if I was still on the other side, I would be bothered by it. They think that it is a jab at them.
Yeah,
and
well,
it's
it's
not.
because you've been brainwashed for so long to thinking that it's the best system, best place in the world, best everything, because that's all you hear on TV until you actually get out there and try something different. And
Right.
thank God we're here. This is the best place in the world, and people who are born here should be thanking their lucky stars every day because they don't know what it's like in other places.
I get goosebumps when you say something like that. Now, I'm an immigrant to Canada from Israel. My parents are immigrants to Israel from Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that they've always upgraded their lives. And I know
Yeah.
some people take offense of Israel being Canada and upgrading in the United States. But I will tell you wholeheartedly, and maybe I'm still in my honeymoon phase, maybe so are you. But the American dream is alive and well and kicking here.
Yeah.
It is the greatest country in the world from almost every aspect. I consider important for my standard of life. I think Canada is an incredible place. Was an incredible place. Worth fighting for. I think that it is headed in the wrong direction, sadly. But you're an entrepreneur. You're here on a business visa on E2. It means your kids don't have a social security number. It's just you and your wife, right? You have to reestablish relationships. You have to learn where the pharmacy is, where the grocery store is, where school is, make new friends yourself, your own social setting.
Sure. Yeah.
And it is incredibly difficult. What I have found is Americans, maybe because Florida is so much of a melting pot as well and so much transition, although a lot more people are moving down here to really plant lives, have been way nice. Maybe my expectations were too low. Have been a lot nicer, more hospitable than I would have ever imagined.
Well,
in my life.
I always say it's the sunshine because you go for a walk in the neighborhood and people are like, "Hey, how are you?"
Yeah.
And if you used to do that in Toronto, people would be like looking at you weird and like, "Fuck you," or even saying hi to me. But here, everyone's like, "Hey, have a good day. Nice seeing you." But I don't know who these people are, but they're neighbors, and they're nice.
And are you in a gated community?
No.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Because I know in the gated community, like I'll walk my dog, and everybody just hi, hello. And in Canada, I've been like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah, exactly. So it's totally different, and I think it's the sunshine and the happiness of people here, or that's just the way they are. But it's been amazing.
There's a standard of living here that people keep talking about, but some of it is unexplainable. This is a very difficult transition. It's hard on so many levels, especially when you're reestablishing businesses.
Yeah.
When you opened up this big office, is it still functioning in Toronto? Like,
No, everyone wanted to work remote after COVID, and I thought that was fine, so we sold it because we had to ditch it during COVID.
Sure.
And it's not like we did great, but thankfully we did sell it.
Some of us got hurt a lot.
Yeah.
I talked about it in the podcast.
Yeah.
I took a beating on a couple of businesses.
Yeah, so it had to be done because there was no point in having this big office when no one wanted to even go in anymore. And that was fine. It worked for us. Being remote worked for us greatly.
I have to tell you something just popped into my head. And what people don't realize, you said your kids went to Bialik. My kids went to Bialik. The Jewish community, especially in Toronto, in Vaughan, is very big. But compared to the United States, it's very small.
Tiny.
It's very robust. Yeah. And within 2 seconds, I told a couple of friends of mine that I'm actually going on a podcast with you.
Yeah.
and one of them is a personal injury lawyer. I was just like, of course I know him. I don't know. Do you know Jen Hoffman for Hoffman Law?
Yeah,
She's
I
like,
think
of
so.
course
Yeah,
I know him. I spoke to a few other people and they're like, of course I know him.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the kind of the community that's here. Before, when I used to mention people that moved down here, they're like, oh, you guys are all a little crazy.
Yeah.
It'll all blow over. It'll be okay. Now, fast forward about, a year and a half, and people are like, I wish I made that move.
Yeah.
I wish I could have gone. I wish I can't because of this and that. And we all had our anchors.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all had family. We all had businesses. We all had a comfort. We all had our anchors.
But I think you got to look at one of the main drivers was what is the future for our kids?
Bingo.
And what's their opportunity level going to be? And our feeling was that in Canada, with the way things are, and how they have been going and where they're going in the future, there is little opportunity, and there will be little opportunity, especially, sorry to say, for probably Jewish people in the future. But that was our view, and we said, you know what? Amongst the 75 other reasons, we need to give them the opportunity to succeed in life, and the best place to do that is here.
I see you said, I'm sorry to say, and for Jewish people, that the sad part is that we are recording this podcast on day 5 on what is the worst atrocity that's ever happened in Israel and to Jews since the Holocaust.
Yeah, that's right.
And you talk about Canada's position on it. There was a G7 letter, that was signed by the G7 countries, and the only 2 exclusions that didn't support Israel's position were Japan and Canada.
Yeah.
So as a Jew, the direction of Canada isn't going in the right direction, right? And we can see that, and it's very difficult not to talk about this emotionally, and everybody has a position on it, but there's only one side to the story here. And the silence from everyone else who isn't just standing up and saying this was wrong, may not be supportive of Israel, is deafening.
Yeah.
And is robust and wide ranged, and you can see it. It's out there, right? Because if this, God forbid, it would have happened in any civilized country, or any country for that matter, the entire world would be up in arms. I think they are. I think they're slowly coming around to it.
Yeah, and I think you got to take what you're seeing online with a grain of salt, just because of the number of supporters on one side versus the other. So your comments that you're getting online are definitely outnumbered, but that doesn't mean that's the feelings of everybody or everybody else. It's a very strange situation. It's barbarism. It's disgusting what the images that I've seen happen. It is truly disturbing and disgusting. And a lot of people I know, they've been crying for days. They may not even know anyone there.
Right.
Or have
Do you have any family there?
I don't, but you know what? It's very upsetting, and it's a really disgusting thing. And you read these stories and you see the pictures, and the pictures are even worse from the actual written stories. When you actually see all these pictures, it's very disturbing. These aren't armies going after armies, which you expect casualties on war with armies and armies. But when you have children and kids and grandparents and whole families and being slaughtered and shot or chopped up or burnt or whatever it is, that's truly disgusting. And you cannot justify those things to civilians under any guise.
There is no middle ground on that. And the fact that Canada, the country that our kids were born in, I'm not sure whether you were born in Canada.
Yeah, I was born there. Yeah.
I'm sure, are your parents immigrants to Canada?
So my dad's side has been in Canada since 1890.
Wow.
So
I really know very few people with that kind of lineage.
Yeah, there are very few Jews that have been there. They left Russia a long time ago to get out.
Incredible.
And then my mom's family came after the Second War they went to Poland and then Israel and then Toronto. But, all of my dad's side, they've been there forever. They fought in World War II. They supported their country forever. And, it's sad to see the non-supporting coming back.
The only front at the moment that, and hopefully you'll remain that way, that the pro-Palestinian movement still has a leg to stand on right now is the propaganda machine. And they've been spinning the wheels on that for so long that right now the backpedaling and there's all these holes they need to plug into the ship. When you said something about my parents came from Poland to Israel, one of the narratives I've heard being tossed around is that, you see, Jews are not native to Israel. They're all Europeans. No. They are native to Israel, have left to other countries in the form of diaspora, and have settled in many other locations. And Israel has been the Jewish homeland since the first written history, geography, law book ever. Hard stop. And if anybody thinks anything else, that they are oppressing and holding on to an occupied land, they have no idea what they're talking about, and they're choosing to be anti-Semitic.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple. I just want to bring up a couple small points on kind of what you're saying there, and it's something that really interested me, and not a lot of people realize, and I didn't realize either. But you always hear, and I'm not a historian, I'm not an Israeli expert, but I just know what I've read and seen, and I haven't done every minute bit of research, but I do know what I've read. And
don't worry, the people that are fighting the other side did zero research. Okay. They just know they hate Jews,
and that's enough. And that's enough, and I get that. So, you look at the whole Gaza situation, and it was Land for Peace in 2005, and they gave them the area. And then, for years, I would hear as a young person, as a kid, well, they've locked us in. This is open air prison. They've done all these terrible things to us, and the Israelis are preventing us. And then I look at the map, and I start reading this. There's two gates.
Rafah Gate, Egypt.
There's a gate in Egypt, and there's a gate in Israel.
Yeah.
And if the Jews are doing such bad things on this side, why not use the other gate?
And I'll tell you, I can give you the answer to that.
I know there's an answer to it, but what I'm saying is that the positioning in the media is such that they think it's surrounded all by Israel, and that the Jews are locking them in here.
Open air prison, largest open air prison.
So, that to me is a little disingenuous, because there are two doors and an ocean. So, I kind of want to just make that clear for people, because some people still don't realize that it's not just like we're surrounding someone. And the other interesting thing I saw, there's a couple of things, but the other interesting thing I'm hearing a lot of is, they cut off the water, they cut off the power, and you're killing. Well, why are you relying on the people you want to kill for your basic necessities? Why are you relying on Israel? Your mandate is to go kill them, and yet you want water,
you want the answer
food,
to that one too,
and electricity coming from the people that you want to kill. Why haven't you guys built your own infrastructure in the last whatever many years, or worked out something with Egypt to say, hey, maybe we need backup?
Their brethren.
Maybe we can get some water from you guys, or some energy from you guys, not just Israel, so we're not reliant on one source.
Sure.
Most people down here know hurricanes. You have a backup generator in case the main one cuts off. Okay, maybe you need a backup there.
Right.
If you're worried about your people.
Right. So there's so many answers to that. First, to touch on the Rafah Gate, the Egyptian side, which is an open border if Egypt chooses to open it, and they do not. And here's the reason why. They are afraid for the cancer that is Hamas to come flooding over the border and become their problems. One of the smartest strategic moves Egypt ever made, and was when they did a land exchange for the Sinai, when they signed a peace deal with Golda Meir. I believe it was Nasser that signed it. They said, this part we'll let you guys keep, and that was the Gaza Strip. And Israel started to flourish within that. They built kibbutzes and moshavs and homes and buildings. And Israel took their own people out of there.
Yeah.
In 2005, like you mentioned, for an attempt at peace. And what they did was backfill it with vile hate, a generation of brainwashed kids that don't know their history, that are absolutely oppressed, that are treated like shit, and then they tell them that the devil is doing that as the Jew. When they talk about free Palestine, I don't believe in a two-state solution, but if that's the price that needs to be paid for a true and long-lasting peace, that's the price that needs to be paid. And I am no person that has any valid opinion on it. But when you talk about free Palestine, it's freeing them of Hamas. It's freeing them of radical Islam. It's freeing them of the people that treat them like shit that have created this situation.
Yeah.
The Jews would never do that. They don't do that to their own people. They wouldn't do that to your people, and they have no business dealing with your people. And let's clarify, the Gaza Strip is Egyptian land pre-border split, but is formerly Judea and Samaria, so historically Jewish land. The West Bank used to belong to Jordan. We took that from them in a war. Again, Jewish homeland. History cannot be written on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, but it has been in the history books of the people that are vile and hate. But this isn't a Jewish problem. This isn't everybody problem. They're not saying we're going to stop here. This is the entire world problem.
Yeah.
And like ISIS, like Al-Qaeda,
Yeah.
it's time to stop this. There's no more bloodshed than anyone should ever justify.
Yeah. You know, we just had 9/11 a month ago, and everyone remembers that. I remember where it was because it was so disgusting. You know, I was at York University watching the TV.
Me too. I was at Ryerson. If you remember Sam the Record Man, right on Youngster, right across from that was still a TV shop, like a store. That's how long ago it was. And I had to submit a paper, and I'm standing outside of the crowd of people, but just popped out of the subway at Yonge and Dundas, and I remember that.
Yeah.
And I do not want to make a moral equivalence between people talk about the percentages of what it looks like. This is 9/11 times 2. No. They are equally vile and disgusting, and are done by the most heinous, brainwashed animals on this planet.
Yeah.
And this is not, like I keep repeating, this is not a Jewish problem. This is an everybody problem. Unfortunately, it's happened in Israel. And it's come to the point where whenever there was some sort of altercation, there was like this small window of opportunity where the world kind of let Israel do what it needs to do to protect itself.
Yeah.
And then, they ratcheted up the pressure because the propaganda on the jihadist side was so strong. I think at this point is, regardless of pressure, regardless of what people say, the job must be done. And then watch what happens when they rid this area of these vile animals. Then let's see what a peace can actually look like. And it will be beautiful. It will be the blueprint for what the next generation in the world needs to. It will be a rebirth between Muslims and Jews and Christians and Catholics and Buddhists and whatever it is that you want to pray to and live by. Like, I am appalled at the LGBTQ population and their support of Hamas.
Yeah, I saw a really, really funny post yesterday, and it was like LGBTQ guys, and it was saying, whatever you want to call it, guys, girls, it's, she's, whatever. And it said LGBTQ for Palestine. Right. And then underneath the guy said, chickens for KFC.
But I know it's absurd, but it's true.
Because if they went there and you actually go there, you'd be flying off a building right now.
Yeah, let's see what a gay parade would look like down the Gaza Strip.
No, and that's why the one in Tel Aviv is so big.
Yeah, and they would be running so fast to Dizengoff, to Tel Aviv, for shelter and support. But that's what a moral democracy does. You can criticize it, you can hate it, you can kick and scream, and in fact, you can fight and lobby for your rights, and you will probably get it. And that's okay. Because that's how humanity needs to live. And I am disgusted that we needed to get this way where, we talk about babies being beheaded. It didn't need to go that far for everybody to understand. And the price is too much to pay regardless of what the outcome will be. Right? But we here, and when I say here in the United States or in Canada or North America, anyone but Israel cannot tell Israel what to do, because they're the ones who are sending their kids in to fight.
That's right.
We cannot tell them what to do. We can support them in other ways. We can have opinions. We need to stand strong. But I have never in my entire life seen the Jewish community more unified on every level than I have today.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's a beautiful thing to witness.
Great. It's great to see. And, you had people who were previously unsure or never said anything, but I think this has come to such a level where you can't not recognize that this is a problem.
Sure.
And that terrorism is a problem, and that you have to uproot these terrorists and get rid of them and start fresh with a government that's not a terrorist government.
Right. There's no room for that.
Yeah, you can't have this.
Not in a world that has become so accepting of everything else. You can't. There's no moral equality. You can't not negotiate with people. You can't negotiate with people that have no respect for their own humanity. I'm not talking about their opposition. You can't.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to create a moral suasion of the blockade. It's bullshit. Half-truths are lies.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them being toted around because people want to hear that. What are you telling your kids about this situation?
Yeah, so we're telling them exactly what it is. And
Really?
they're old enough to hear it. Well, they're 10 and 13, and they'll
Right.
hear it at school, or they see it on whatever online. And hopefully they don't see the really disgusting stuff, but
Yeah,
if they do, they do. And it's very emotional. It's kind of like when your kids go on a trip to the Holocaust Museum. They're going to see stuff from the camps, and it's sad and disgusting, but it needs to be seen so it's not forgotten.
It's a statement I've heard a lot of lately, and I can't believe that it's something I've even uttered out of my mouth was even the Nazis weren't as bad.
Yeah.
And it's true. You beheaded children.
Yeah.
You raped women, called their parents to watch it.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Where is there a lower spot after the Nazis that humanity could have ever gotten? Could you have even imagined it?
Yeah.
And apparently we haven't even scratched the minimum.
Yeah, I'm
of
sure.
what's about to happen.
I'm sure. And, people are like, oh, they're going to live stream killings and this and that. But you know what? They're going to kill these people probably anyways. If they live stream it, that will only be showing more people the disgustingness of what it is, of terrorism.
The sad part is that people have created a moral equivalence that gives this vindication and justification. And what we all need to do as a people is stand by, watch, take note, move on when the time is right. But one thing we definitely don't need is permission anywhere. Just by us talking about this on this platform.
Yeah.
I'm not scared. I'm sure neither are you. We have children that we need to protect, and we will teach them to be proud of what they are because they're just like everybody else.
Yeah.
We are not an oppressive people. It's a crock of shit that has been sold. The real oppressors are the ones that are creating all of this nonsense. If Israel dropped its arms, there would be no Israel the next day. If everyone in the West Bank or the Gaza Strip lowered their weapons, there would be peace within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Facts. Nobody wants to answer that kind of stuff because it's not popular. It's much easier to hate Jews. So anti-Semitism is not a swastika on your door anymore. It's the pro-Palestinian movement. So if that's the choice that you want to take, that's the path that you want to take. And I, in conversations, and have been very active for many years on this front in Toronto with some vile, disgusting individuals in Toronto, I keep telling them that you will fall on the wrong side of history. And they will. When the Nazis took off their uniforms, they didn't know that they were a Nazi anymore. Mm-hmm. What social media has done is allowed us to see what all these animals have been writing for years and posting for years, and that will come back to haunt them.
Yeah,
and I want to be right there to make sure to make that happen.
I saw a couple interesting things yesterday that are of relation to that, where one was an Air Canada pilot who posted all stuff about killing Jews and this and that. And this is a guy flying a plane. I
never saw that.
Yeah, and apparently, and then they said, oh, well, and then later after people posted this to Air Canada, they said, and if you'll have to look this up later to see what this guy was writing. And this is someone who has hundreds of people's lives in his hands. Really shouldn't be saying something like this. And then they said, well, he's now grounded. Well, that doesn't mean fired.
That's Canada, man.
That's Canada, and that's what they're there for. And it was just ridiculous. And the other thing I saw, which was very interesting, was that Harvard, and there's 30-something school groups that put out a notice that they support Palestinian and it's the Jews' fault and all this. And then Bill Ackerman put out a post too, and he says, please give us the names of all these people so we won't hire them.
Right.
And I saw another one where this NYU student or whatever.
Saw that.
Yeah, at least they got their employment terminated because that letter was gross too.
Vile.
Yeah. So, if there's repercussions for everyone for every little statement you make, then it goes always. It shouldn't just go one way.
On a slightly, I don't know if it's funnier or sad, but Mia Khalifa, which is a prominent porn star, was just fired by Playboy because of her perspective.
Yeah.
Now here's an actual cocksucker who got fired for her point of view.
Yeah.
Even that business, and it's a business.
They were faster to take that action than
right.
Others.
I am so happy to see that there are people standing up, and I am grateful for the opportunities the United States has brought to us. I think you can speak freer now, and I mean, this is not just a statement I'm making. I mean, podcasts have now been regulated
in Canada.
Yeah. And I had a podcast with Melissa Lantsman, who will hopefully, in very short order, be Canada's deputy prime minister. And she herself talked about Bill C-11, C-18, the censorship bill, where you can't spread news now through social media within Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, it is deplorable, and that is something that has not happened, and I hope will never happen in the United States. You might not agree with people's opinion, but they're allowed to voice them.
Yeah, which is amazing because I feel that Canada has gone very communist based, and obviously no one wants that. And there's a lot of stuff with the censorship, definitely. Even when you look at the truckers, how the GoFundMe's are blocked and the bank accounts.
I know people had their bank accounts
frozen and insurance canceled. This was all done pretty quickly. They allow Hamas terrorist lovers to protest with nothing. I'll just leave it at that.
I know. And there's certainly a moral equivalence that is not fair.
Yeah.
And no, the world isn't fair.
Yeah, no, it's not fair.
Right.
And the other thing is like the pure censorship, like you're saying, that's going on in Canada. It's ridiculous. Like I send friends news articles or whatever from here, and then they're like, I can't read it; it's blocked.
So, see, I've never run into that.
I get it all the time.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'll send links to things like I can't open this. It tells me not available. And it's not because it's like a private post or whatever. It's just news that they are not allowed to see.
My mother is. My dad passed right before COVID, and I would have loved to have him for a minute just to give me his perspective on this, because he was a very funny dude. He always had humor. But my mother and father are from the former Soviet Union. My mom has this, she has this accent, and before we left to Florida, and everything was going down, she goes, "Well, it's not exactly communism, but you can smell it from here."
Yeah.
And she's referring to Canada.
Yeah, of course.
Right. In tongue in cheek, fast forward to today, a couple of years past, it is full on.
Yeah.
Just without the moniker.
Yeah, it's gone crazy there. And thankfully, I tell people, when did you come here? I'm like, well, we escaped last year. And it's a joke, but it's kind of true.
Yes.
It's very true. And thank God we're here. And like I said, this is the best place in the world for so many reasons. But over there, it's just one of the million problems that it's just not making it a tenable solution for the future.
I wanted to ask you something that's a bit of a switch of gears.
Yeah.
You said you do corporate law and securities.
Yeah.
Does that mean you help companies get listed?
Yes. So I'm a director on the Canadian Securities Exchange as well. And that's one thing. And then in my law practice, one of our key things is helping small entrepreneurs go public, do that route, go from private to public and get listed and traded. So we do that. I've worked to establish a couple stock exchanges in Canada.
Really?
Yeah, I helped out Alpha and Neo. And the Neo exchange just got bought by CBOE.
What's CBOE?
Chicago Board Exchange.
Oh, okay.
So now it's part of a huge conglomerate. But yeah, we do focus a lot. Probably more than half our stuff is on that. You're now a little private company and you're ready to go public. We're going to help you through that process.
So do you need to have X number of employees or revenue or to actually get listed?
It really depends on your company. It depends on what you do, your business plan. The two main blockers that I always say to people are you got to have pretty much a year or 2 years of audited financial statements, and you got to have at least 150 investors. So there are ways to get all that done, but that's your biggest time frame to go from private to public. But there's tons of prospect mining. There's small technology.
Yeah, I'm in a bunch of junior mining stocks.
There's all sorts of stuff that gets out there and goes public, and it's a good way to have that liquidity and see where you're going to go and grow.
Is the goal to get or graduate to the larger extent exchanges, to the TSXs?
It really doesn't matter that much anymore.
Really?
To be honest with you, I don't think anyone's going to say, oh, I love this company, but it should be over here. It should be on the TSX.
Well, usually when I think of the smaller exchanges, it's a lot more speculative.
It is.
It's 100%.
It's a lot more
dangerous.
They're junior, but there are some also huge companies on smaller exchanges.
Really?
Because they don't necessarily need to do that move.
Why wouldn't they want to move?
Well, a lot of them, such as the weed ones, the TSX never allowed them to list there. So they stayed at the CSE, and the CSE now has a senior tier, which allows them to list bigger company stocks, and you're treated differently because you're a big company. So same rules as a TSX, but you're on the CSE. So they're different levels. They didn't want it because they didn't want to deal with the U.S. weed stuff and the worries there about federal regulations and all this stuff. So that's why you don't see many U.S. operators on the TSX. There are a couple, but really not. Most are on the CSE. So you have tiny little mining companies, and you got billion-dollar multi-state operators.
I know quite a few people that are in the process of potentially going public, have talked about it. Friends that have corporations and companies that are significant, and they've asked me the question of how that ties into potentially getting a visa or even a green card down here. Is that something you can give them counsel on?
I don't know if that directly gets them anywhere here, but I'm happy to talk with them. There are ways to do it, but I don't know if going public is it, but it definitely is a great monetization opportunity, and probably helps out a lot with planning, because when you leave, you have that disposition of whatever your assets are, and the country is going to say, we want our tax for that.
Right. Yeah. So the departure tax, and not enough people talk about this.
Yeah.
I think we're both, actively planning or thinking about this, always in the back of our heads. I'm selfishly very grateful, obviously, that you were on my podcast, but I'm also happy that people like you and your family and your wife and your kids are coming down here, because you're going to want to stay here and build communities and build a future for your kids, and then they will choose what they want to do and be given the opportunity and choice, which is now being limited in Canada, and people don't see it. The encroachment is small, but often. And it's just incredible that, you're established in Toronto. I was established. Yeah. So was my wife. So was your wife. I mean, we really didn't have a reason to leave, but here we are.
Yeah.
And we're just sitting.
It's easier to stay, obviously.
So much
easier to stay for sure, but that's not the future. And I don't see the future being there for many, many, many reasons for us. Some people are in a different boat. It works for them. God bless you. For us, it was not the future.
It's a brave move to move down here, right? I think COVID taught us anything is that we can work from anywhere.
Yeah,
it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter where you are.
Where we sit. Did you find any business interruptions when you moved the firm down?
Thankfully, I've always been into technology, and I've always spent a lot on legal technology, and we were always able to work anywhere paperlessly. We've always been a paperless setup since I started the firm.
Oh, so you were ahead of the
So
time.
we were ahead of the game. So the second they were like, oh, you got to work from home? Fine, no problem.
Right.
I've been working from wherever for years before that. So that was a fine thing, and everyone was happy to do it. And it was zero downtime for us because you just take your laptop and go.
Right.
So that was a wonderful thing. And yeah, even now, like even in our Miami office, you know, we have people, people don't come down to the office that often. Lawyers, they don't. They're all over the place. I just had someone in California. Like, it doesn't matter where you are nowadays. It's
Right.
how you work and what you know.
From a real estate perspective, that's exactly what I'm seeing here. We're actively starting to acquire assets in the hopes of establishing a REIT in the long term, because we want to recreate a work home space that is going to cater exactly to being able to work from anywhere, specifically home. And what we don't talk about enough, and because nobody really understands, is how AI is going to like put gasoline on how quick that actually is going to happen, because it's going to create all these efficiencies. There will be a renaissance. There will be this like almost awakening when AI starts solving all these problems logistically and otherwise. You don't have to sit in a building to be efficient.
Yeah.
And
I think that the worry for me with a lot of AI is going to make people really stupid.
I think so.
Because you don't have to use your brain. The kids are just going to go to ChatGPT or something and say like, hey, what's this answer? Hey, what's that answer? What do you think I should do? Or who should I vote for? And the computer will tell them, and they'll take that at face value. And one of the things that I always tell my kids is don't listen to anything. Do your own research. And just because you see something in one place, look at 3, 4, 5 different places and think critically, because that's not a tool today that people are proud of, is thinking critically. They want to just grab that little snip from online.
It's quick.
Because it's quick and easy, and away you go. I don't think that's the right approach. And I don't think that helps you with your understanding of the true world.
We are ill-equipped as parents and as humans to deal with what will inevitably come in the form of AI. Mm-hmm. My fear is the people that are going to be the ones setting the rules,
in control.
Yeah, that's the ones, whoever makes the rules to the game. So that's scary to me. But a part of me also wants to believe that there will be a reduction in a lot of costs for the things that we spend money on that we can outsource to a machine. I think that new businesses and creative ideas will be spread and open via the new generation that doesn't have to worry about some of the logistical administrative minutiae that we had to deal with. And that's what I'm hopeful for.
I think that you got to look at both sides. And I remember when we were kids and, you'd be in school and, the service economy, we're not going to have to manufacture anything. That was the biggest, dumbest lie everyone ever told us. And I think that was a wrong thing. And I think that was part of the whole shift to China and probably communists pushing that way, because without manufacturing, you don't really have wealth creation that much. Services, yes, you can create software and this and that, but like lawyer, doctor, this, that, car mechanic is not as much wealth creation as owning a manufacturing or producing something that has scale, that you can scale on your own. If you're in service, you're selling an hour or whatever, or an appointment or a hairdo or something.
Right.
If you're making your own stuff, you have unlimited potential.
I agree. I think that...
So I would just say be careful with AI, because the more you take away
I'm terrified.
People, the less jobs there'll be, and yes, you won't be spending that $40 on that bookkeeper maybe a month or whatever, but that person may be out of a job, or more people will be out of a job. You will eventually reduce your income because the general population will not have enough money to pay for the things that you're offering.
When do you think AI will be like front and center and in our everyday lives, like all day, every day?
I hope it won't. Personally,
You think it can be
I like
stopped?
dealing with people. I love
Right.
talking to people. I love meeting people, even though I do work stuff remotely. I'm in Zooms all day. There are some things that I'm sure it'll make helpful, and there are business processes that it'll help, but I do not want to see a time when we get rid of a lot of people for an AI solution.
I hope we find peace in the world and then work out those first
Yes.
world problems, which are
How do we use
amazing
AI?
things to worry about,
Yeah.
but they are concerns nonetheless. How can people get a hold of you?
They can then go to our website, www.corpcounselusa.com.
Okay.
They can call me, 786-525-2564. We're happy to help anyone. We're happy to help, small, like I said, we help small companies all the way to go publics. And what I like to call our firm and our whole mantra is big firm expertise at an uptown price. So we offer the advice and experience you're only getting at huge firms at a fraction of the cost. And that's been our mantra. That's how we've grown so much. And we have a great group of experts who you can draw information from and experience from that you wouldn't get at hardly any other firm.
I have to connect you with Mark Gideon, who was on this podcast. He's my cross-border accountant.
Awesome.
And he's got companies that are exactly what you are describing.
Yeah, totally.
And I think would be a great meeting of the minds. I've set him up with a couple of people, and it's been really successful for everybody. Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
thank you for your candor. Thank you for being brave. And I appreciate you, man. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate it. And this is great. And thank you for letting everyone share their thoughts and experiences and why coming down here has been so amazing. And like I keep saying, this is the best place in the world. And if you don't see that now, you probably will see that soon. But it is the best place in the world.
Amen.
Amen.
Talk to you later.
All right. Thanks.